feeling very beachy. So as my first review back from my hiatus, I am pleased to discuss with you today the 1968 Italian sexploitation film, Bora Bora. So grab your swimsuit and your shades and let's head off to the Pacific. Okay, so before we dive in, I just wanted to let you know this is a spoiler safe review here. I am going to talk about 75% of the story, and even though I would freaking love to discuss this ending with you, I'm not going to. So I'm not going to reveal to you the ending. Just know this isn't a very story-focused film, so I'm not really going to be ruining stuff. Bora Bora was written and directed by Ugo Liberatore. It is starring Haydee Politoff, my girl, as Margot, and we have seen her in films like Count Dracula's Great Love, Queens of Evil, and Check to the Queen. It's also starring Corrado Pani as Robert. I have seen him in Watch Me When I Kill and Anna, the Pleasure, the Torment. Also starring Doris Kunstmann as Suzanne. She seems to be pretty famous, but I haven't seen her in anything. She kind of reminds me of a Barbara Boucher. It's also starring Antoine Coco Puputauki as Mani. He's been in nothing else. He is a native to the islands, as well as Rosine Copier as Tahina. She's also been in nothing else. Here are some of the taglines of this film. Bora Bora. A world where love has no inhibitions, and every woman can become truly female. I'm like, what does that mean? Where sensuality is no sin, and love knows no laws. The synopses of this film are hilariously short. Everywhere you turn, it's very, very brief, because honestly, when you're describing this story, there's just not much you can say. Wikipedia says, an estranged married couple reconcile their differences in the sensual surroundings of a Tahitian island. Letterboxd says, a Frenchman finds his runaway wife on an island in the Pacific. Which, by the way, in the English version I watched, they were calling him an American. But anyway. And then here's my synopsis. Robert arrives in French Polynesia to track down his elusive wife, Margot. Along the way, he meets many people on the islands and tries to understand what keeps Margot here. Okay, so it appears there are two versions of this film, the Italian version and then the version that was distributed by American International Pictures. The American International Pictures version removed 7 minutes of the film, and judging just like the runtime of the one that I watched, I'm guessing, or I do know now that I'm watching the AIP version. So 7 minutes were removed. I do not know what was cut out. So if you know, let a hoe know, because I could not find that information. Another thing that they changed was they scrapped the score of the Italian version and redid it. They had it completely redone. But we'll talk more about that later. Now, how did I end up here watching this movie? How did I end up here? If you're familiar with like Euro cult films, you know that they're all kind of related to each other. They're all like cousins, you know? They're all starring the same people or directed by the same people, like across genres. Bora Bora ended up on my watch list because it is starring Haydee, which that doesn't sound right, but apparently that's right. Haydee and Corrado. They both also star side by side in Interrobang, which is a giallo that I enjoy. Now, because I keep forgetting about the word sexploitation, as I was watching this film, I just kept saying, this is just a drama. Like, this is just a drama. It's just about, like, love and relationships. It's slow and meandering and just kind of wandering. And as is the case with many sexploitation films, it had me going, the fuck is happening and why am I watching this? So I'm gonna walk you through the story a little bit, like give you a feel for what this movie's about, okay? So as the film begins, we are in Tahiti and Robert is our main guy, and he arrives at the hotel asking for the room that his wife is in, and the hotel says that she has left. So Robert's like, okay. And he starts this quest to find her. What I was inferring at this point was that they had plans to meet up. She was expecting him, like he had told her he's coming, and he gets there and she's gone, right? It kind of felt like a little bit of a mystery setup. But Robert doesn't seem too concerned. He just starts asking around, like talking to people, looking for Margot, asking them if they know Margot. And he befriends a blonde lady along the way. That's Doris Kunstman's character. I wouldn't even call them friends, but she does help him out a bit. However, it does not take long until we realize that Robert is a total scumbag. I want to like Karate Pani, but he keeps getting cast as very, very despicable people, which kind of overshadows his eyes and his bod. So as Robert is gathering more information, he learns that Margot has likely become few, which just means bored over it, and that she also most likely has a tane, which is a lover. It's actually pretty fun that we get to learn a little bit of the language while we're watching the movie. Okay, so finally, Robert finds Margot. Okay, she's like getting off a boat or something. There's lots of people around. She's walking up to this crowd of people and they sort of lock eyes, and she just doesn't really react. Well, of course, it's 80, so she doesn't really emote, right? So they end up like, he comes over to her or whatever. He kind of like puts his arm around her and takes her off to the side. And I'm like, okay, they're going to talk about, you have pieced together that things are rocky between them. So you're like, all right, they're just going over here to talk in private. And then freaking jump scare, he just slams her on the ground and starts beating her. And that was just so unexpected that it truly startled me, and it was vicious. And I think it was surprising because this movie has just been so nothing's happening, right? It's just leisurely, slow, and then all of a sudden you see this violence. And it felt like it went on for so long and nobody stepped in to help. It was like, and that's when I realized this movie is gonna piss me off. Yeah, there's violence against women in all these movies or whatever, but it's one thing for a killer in a slasher or a giallo. Let's say the killer is killing women, there are repercussions. Like the killer does get caught and has to pay. But in a movie like this, there are no repercussions. He's violent against women, and nobody bats an eye and nothing happens. It's just like, it feels like it's normalizing this behavior because everyone's just like about it. It's weird. And I think just as frustratingly, Margot just doesn't really care. She just doesn't even really react. She's just still like calmly telling Robert that she doesn't want to be with him and she won't be with him. And she's my girl. I love her. But I felt like her signature stoicism did not work in this movie. We needed someone a little more animated, someone a little more passionate. Not just to react to being beat, but I'm just saying like everything that her character is doing in the movie. This is a passionate movie and she's just like this. All the time. There are some just like weird little quirks in this movie. So shortly after Robert and Margot find each other, Margot's like, I don't want to be with you. And she like gets on this boat and he's following her to the boat and she picks up this baby and she was like, I don't want to be with you. And he was like, is that your baby? And she's like, yes. And then he's like, she's only been here 3 months. How can that be her baby? And then we never see the baby again. Anyway, so as time goes on, Robert is very stubborn and he is not only refusing to leave the islands, but he's refusing to stop following Margot around. I guess he's stalking her. But he's not trying to be sneaky about it. He's like just following her around, like talking to her constantly. Harassing him, that's the word. I cannot even begin to tell you all the reasons why this man is terrible. He's terrible, a scumbag, taunting her all the time and asking all these questions. Oh yeah, he's also like super racist to the people on the island. It seems that he can't decide whether he wants to beat her senseless or get on his hands and knees and beg her to come back. He seems to kind of be teetering between those two extremes. And yeah, he does a lot of other stuff, like morally questionable stuff and just stuff that makes you hate him, bro. So yes, Margot does have a Tane. His name is Mani, and she's not trying to hide it. I mean, she's like trying not to tell Robert everything, but she's also just like, yeah. And so eventually, of course, Robert and Mani meet each other, and it's so funny because Mani does like the whole kiss thing when he meets Robert, and I think it's hilarious. But everyone just has this brazen openness. I mean, kind of like that tagline would imply. There's just this openness about like, oh, everybody's sleeping with everybody, and so has a lover and a husband, and blah, blah, blah. So Robert is placed in this interesting situation where he's just like face to face with this reality of his wife shamelessly having a Tane. So then Robert decides he's gonna start sleeping around with some people. And I'm not sure how he chooses who he sleeps with, because like some people you don't think he would be sleeping with, and then some people you think he would be sleeping with and he's not. But he eventually takes a primary lover, and then he and his lover be hanging out with Margot and her lover, and they all just hang out together like friends. And these are the kinds of movies that just make you feel crazy. This is not how humans act normally. And it's just like this strange fantasy because like nobody ever mentions having a job this whole movie, for example. It's just not reality. And I was on the edge of my seat this whole movie just hoping that Robert is gonna die. Even though this isn't a giallo or a horror, and I just had no idea what to expect. And that is where I will stop telling you about the story, but you get the gist. Love triangles, squares, octagons, abuse, vacation, paradise, culture clash. You could say there is a lot here, but it is quite a soft and slow movie. And the next morning, as I woke up and thought back on the film, I was like, I just had this feeling like it had to be based on a book or something. Or, you know, not only did it have this sort of meandering trajectory, but there were also just so many throwaway elements. You know, after a while, Doris Kunstmann, she's just gone. It's like she was never there. And the whole baby thing, that went away. And I guess I would say that the climax felt kind of forced and sort of like out of left field for everyone. I think the movie was slightly clumsy and awkward, but it definitely had a gracefulness to it nonetheless because of the atmosphere. I suppose the film was written like for the location. So the story, you could say, is slightly lacking because the location is really like the main focus here. But there are a lot of intentionally placed themes to consider, like obviously race and lifestyle differences, gender, and autonomy, and also just this idea that people are always changing. Let me talk about the setting really quick. The location. This is French Polynesia, Tahiti, Bora Bora, and other islands in that area. And I'm gonna be honest, I mean, I'm not a fully fledged world traveler yet, but I definitely had to look up and see where Bora Bora is. I mean, I've looked it up before, but I just couldn't remember. I just knew it was somewhere way out there, right? So it's kind of like sort of where Hawaii falls, but like way south of that. So it's like way out there, you know? But it was kind of fun. I like when films take place in like an exotic location like that because I love geography. And I went down a little rabbit hole, like looking at the maps, exploring the island, reading about the island, reading about the words they used in the movie. Anyway, the place is gorgeous. It's beautiful. I loved just getting to see the culture and the people, and everything's beautiful. Okay, so now let's go back and talk about the music again. Remember when I told you that AIP like scrapped the Italian score and replaced it, right? They removed the score from Piero Piccioni and replaced it with one by Les Baxter. So when I watched this movie, I didn't know any of this at the time. And I remember thinking like, this soundtrack, like it's okay, but it doesn't fit the movie. It was like orchestral and sweeping and light and airy, but it just didn't feel tropical. It didn't feel like island music. Something felt weird. And I remember thinking like, maybe if it was recorded in the 70s, if it had like a 70s score, maybe that would have hit better. I was blaming the 60s, like it must just be a 60s thing, but like, no, girl. I went today and listened to the original score and I'm pissed. I am pissed that they scrapped that because that was proper island music. I don't know. No offense to Les Baxter, but my issue is that what he wrote doesn't fit the music as well as Piero. I do want to talk a little bit about the sexploitation factor of this film. The film doesn't show that much. It is the 60s after all. There is some nudity and like some sex scenes, but it's just kind of, light. I think where the sexploitation is heavier is just from like not what they're showing, but what they're talking about doing, or like the actual concepts behind what's happening, like what these people get up to. Just the general like sexually deviant attitudes, if you will. And some of it is kind of icky, okay? Like there's some questionable stuff that's gross. Also, I have no idea. 7 minutes were cut from the film. Like I said, I don't know if there was more sexual content in those 7 minutes. But this is a reminder to me as someone who doesn't like pursue sexploitation specifically, but it always just keeps coming up. It really is, even though you can't really call it a genre, I guess you can call it a genre, it really is just this like huge spectrum from something that might be playful and fun to something that might be very dark. Sexploitation can be like gentle or brutal. It can be sort of like teasy, or it can be straight sleazy. And I would say that this falls much more on like the light side of the spectrum. Before I wrap this up, I wanted to talk about like something that matters to me a lot when it comes to watching movies, and that is like the movie and then how it intersects with wherever you are in your life. Like, where is it hitting in your personal life when you watch it? I think that affects a lot about how the experience went. So for me, I have not been watching a lot of movies lately at all. Apparently, when times get tough, I am not turning to movies. In fact, I abandoned them. Really, the only time that I was really watching movies is if it was a watch party or something that involved other people. So one morning I just had a sparkle of motivation and a sparkle of inspiration to sit down and watch a movie. And then I actually like did it and followed through. And I don't know, I feel like it kind of broke me out of my funk. And even though it was a light movie and it was a simple movie, and or maybe it was not even that good, I don't know. It took me to freaking Bora Bora, and it was beautiful, and I was just like, I felt hope. So in one way, Bora Bora felt like a vacation for my imagination. But in another way, it kind of felt like coming home because I was finally exploring again and watching a freaking movie. Anyway, enough about me. Let's talk about overall impressions and final thoughts on this movie. I would say that I like it. I liked it, but not in a way that you should watch it because you'll like it too necessarily. It's definitely one that I would say is not necessarily for someone who is new to Euro cult and the like. And it's not because you're not ready for it. It's just because you might get bored. Unless you really get used to this like strange style and tone, or at least get to know the people who are on the cast. So you can, you know, that can be your in. Like that was my in. I think it would be a nice pairing with a film like Interrobang or Top Sensation. Oh yeah, put it in 3-pack. That's what I used to do when I finished a review, is I'd put it in 3-pack. So that's what I would do. Interrobang, Top Sensation, and Bora Bora. That's cute. Those are all swimsuit movies. And I did have fun watching Bora Bora. I was hanging on every word because I didn't know where any of this was going. You know, I didn't even really understand what kind of movie it was. And I had fun because I'm going to the beach soon, and I was watching a beach movie and I was like, yes. And I had fun because I got so much good screen time with Haydee Politoff. She's so cool. And yeah, it's not action packed or anything, but it's like slow, soft, subtle, spicy, and sunshiny. And ultimately, I did have fun watching it, but ultimately it's like one of those movies that it doesn't really matter if it is good or bad because it just is. You know? At the time of me recording this, it is currently streaming on the Roku channel for free, and it's also on Tubi. So if you are interested, you should check it out. I mean, it is beautiful to look at. Thank you so much for your patience while I was away. I hope this is the start of a new chapter, and I hope I can keep churning these out. And that is all for this video. I will see you soon, okay? Bye, ciao!